Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now, your host, Tim Johnson.
Stephen Moret and a team of competent professionals have transformed economic development in Louisiana. Billions of dollars in capital investments and thousands of new jobs have come to our state over the last 7 years. Stephen was recently named President and CEO of the LSU Foundation. As he prepares to leave LED, we look back on the state's accomplishments and look forward to what's to come at LSU when Stephen Moret joins us on the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
The Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
Founded in 1984, BIC Alliance and its subsidiaries connect business and industry buyers and suppliers with one another for the betterment of all. BIC helps companies grow in 3 ways: aggressive sales and marketing campaigns in BIC Magazine, finding the right people through BIC Recruiting, and by merger and acquisition and related services through IVS Investment Banking. Contact BIC Alliance today.
The funny thing about Louisiana is that people don't often ask you why you moved home. They just accept it as the most natural thing in the world. Because of course I would want to move back home and be near my tribe, be in this beautiful landscape. It just inspires me. Whether it's a golden marshland, an expanse of sugarcane fields, a sunset through a cypress swamp, the outdoors here really are like nowhere else. You can start your day off paddling at Lake Martin, finish it off with music at the Blue Moon. I came home for my dream job, but also because I believe in Louisiana and where it's going. We're building a world-class Central Park in Louisiana, planned by the members of this community. And I just bought my dream home, a sustainable house designed and built by the architecture students here at the university. My electricity bill was $30 last month. The life I thought I would have in Austin is actually happening right here in Louisiana. I'm E.B. Brooks. I have the job I want in the place I love.
At Peak Performance Physical Therapy, we treat the athlete in everyone, from the soccer star to the soccer mom. If your doctor prescribes physical therapy, ask for Peak Performance by name, getting you back in the game of life.
Consumers and property owners with a construction project can have a very successful result or a regretful experience that could have been avoided. Before beginning any construction project in Louisiana, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers may claim to be licensed or bonded, but you should ask for a copy of the license. For additional information, contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors or go to the website lslbc.louisiana.gov. Licensed and qualified contractors. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show with Tim Johnson.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Pleased to be joined once again by my friend Stephen Moret, Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development. Welcome back, buddy.
Great to be back, Tim. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Let's jump right into it. One of the really nice things that's happened in Louisiana over the last 7 years during your term as Secretary of LED is that we've seen our economy diversify some, and we've seen strong economic performance in all sectors of our state, all regions of our state. So let's go region by region a little bit. Let's talk about some of the good things that have been announced and have become projects, and maybe some of the things that are on the horizon.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you again for having me on the show. I've enjoyed every visit we've had. I also have to say, since this will certainly be our last show, at least in my current job, how grateful I am to the governor for having given me this opportunity, for the legislature for all their support, the business community, the chambers of commerce around the state, the ports, the airports. This has been one of the greatest privileges of my life the last 7 years. And as excited as I am about going to LSU, and I'm thrilled about it, it's hard to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking back, we've had some great wins all over Louisiana. We didn't count on the Great Recession happening early in our term, but in every region of the state, we've had at least 1 or 2, or in some cases 3 or 4 really transformational projects. You know, when you look at Northwest Louisiana, Moonbot Studios is one of the companies actually we helped launch, and they ultimately won an Oscar, for Morris Lesmore. We had the CSC project, 800 job integrated technology center. The Bensler Steel project, $1 billion steel mill and steel pipe mill, 675 jobs, wonderful projects. Go over to Northeast Louisiana. When the old CenturyTel had a couple mergers with Embark and Quest Communications, there was a big question about what was the future of that company. Would they move to Kansas City? Would they move to Denver? Their board decided to stay in Monroe and to add more than 1,100 jobs there in Monroe, Louisiana, which of course is wonderful. They just finished a huge expansion, a new technology center of excellence there. And right across the street, we've been working on this literally for 5 years. We just announced with CenturyLink a major new project, IBM coming to Monroe, Louisiana, 400 jobs, software development center, but it is going to be the anchor of a much bigger park, basically a mixed-use community developed by Robert Daigle, the same folks that put together the Great River Ranch project in Lafayette. There's going to be houses, apartments, commercial, retail, and a technology park in Monroe. I mean, just think about that, Tim. We wouldn't have imagined that 7 years ago.
Well, and you think about all over the state. New Orleans has been transformed, coming back a city on the brink, quite frankly, and now one of the major economic drivers in the United States, the place where young, bright entrepreneurial talent flocks to now. It's been a renaissance,
I remember, I probably told you this story before, but when Governor Jindal asked me to serve as secretary, I wasn't really, I was planning to stay at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. I hadn't given it a lot of thought, but he asked me, and I spent a weekend thinking about it, and I had some big ideas. And he was a good closer. I mean, he got me to say yes before I was ready. And when I walked out of his office, in the transition office, I got sick to my stomach. Not because I didn't think I could do the job, but I was thinking about New Orleans. How could we possibly be successful in the city of New Orleans? I mean, think about it. This is like late 2007. City's got huge leadership issues, the corruption, the schools, the reputation, and yet what has happened since then? And we've just been one part of this. There's much, much more than we've done. But that city has become one of the great turnaround cities of America. I mean, it's become a legitimate destination for young college graduates. It hasn't been that for decades. They're attracting technology companies like GE Capital's Technology Center, the Gameloft project, the Global Star relocation from Silicon Valley, lots of other expansions from Folgers to Lockheed Martin and so forth. That has really become just one of the great turnaround stories in America in the 21st century, and it's gone from being what I thought would be our biggest challenge to being one of the big bright spots. I give great credit, by the way, to the mayor. Mayor Landrieu's done a great job. The business community has really come together under Michael Heck's leadership with GNO Inc. Lots of great things happening in the New Orleans area. Look right here in Baton Rouge. We had this dream going back literally 10 years ago of developing a software sector. We now have EA with more than 400 jobs on the LSU campus. You have IBM getting ready to move into their new building literally in the next 3 weeks, so the first tranche of it at least, downtown, on their way to 800 jobs, already hundreds of jobs already in place in their temporary space on Essen. We've had big manufacturing and industrial expansions throughout the region, SNF and Dow on the west side, Exxon Mobil in East Baton Rouge and also in West Baton Rouge. The big Methanex projects, 2 projects, more than $1 billion of capital investment, many others in the capital region, corporate headquarters relocations and so forth. You look over to Lafayette, the most entrepreneurial community in Louisiana, is now not just a place for oilfield services, it is a legitimate technology center as well, with 3 major IT companies led by CGI creating 400 new jobs, the new Halliburton manufacturing facility, a little more diversification. And one of the projects I'm most excited about, the Bell Helicopter 505 Jet Ranger X. This is the first time, really Louisiana's first modern era aircraft assembly facility, a brand new helicopter, one of the biggest names in helicopters in the world. One of the biggest helicopter models in the world is going to be made right here in Louisiana.
It's crazy, and I'm one of those guys who've made most of my living sort of in the petrochemical refining sector. And 8 years ago, you guys start talking about the need for diversification, and I'm thinking, don't these guys know what goose laid the golden egg here? Right. But you really have made it work. We've maintained our focus, and we've done both. Got about a minute left in this segment, so I want you to hit on one area that you didn't mention, Alexandria, American Specialty Alloys, $1 billion plus project in central Louisiana.
Well, they've had a bunch of great wins. You know, Crest Industries, big headquarters and manufacturing expansion. P&G, multiple big expansions there. Of course, Union Tank Cars there, announced in the prior administration. We've had some great progress. ASA, a great new company, planning a really huge project there. I think they're getting close to finishing up their financing, getting ready to get underway hopefully later this year. A number of other smaller expansions. Hayes Manufacturing, a great Louisiana owned, Louisiana started manufacturer in the region. Every region in Louisiana has some things to be proud of, some things to be excited about. Every region has the potential for greatness, and we've tried to do our part at contributing to that.
It really has been fun to watch, and you know, you and I have had great discussions over the last couple of years as we've started these shows about the progress and how proud I am personally to be from Louisiana. We're going to take a break. We come back, I want to talk about some of the other things that might be on the horizon, some of the things you guys are working on. We're visiting with Stephen Moret. He's the Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.
The Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
BIC Media Solutions is a marketing and communication, media advisory, and event planning company within BIC Alliance. BIC Media Solutions offers custom book publishing, event planning, and keynote speaking to its clients in the business and industrial sector, and marketing partnerships to others in publishing. BIC Alliance is your business and industry connection. Contact BIC Alliance today.
What if I said that the American dream is alive and well, and that it exists for anyone willing to build it? That the power of a nation does not reside in its monuments, but in the hearts and minds of those who built them, and that the country's greatest heroes also wear hard hats. In today's America, it's not enough to dream about the future. You have to build it. Build your future at byf.org.
Consumers and property owners with a construction project can have a very successful result or a regretful experience that could have been avoided. Before beginning any construction project in Louisiana, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers may claim to be licensed or bonded, but you should ask for a copy of the license. For additional information, contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors or go to the website lslbc.louisiana.gov. Licensed and qualified contractors. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show with Tim Johnson.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. We're visiting with Stephen Moret, Secretary of Louisiana Economic Development. We talked about all of the great things going on regionally in the state. Two areas we didn't talk about. One, Southwest Louisiana, Lake Charles, maybe the biggest driver of economic growth in our state.
It's certainly the biggest from an industrial capital investment perspective, tens of billions of dollars, and they've got just the first phase of the Sasol project, almost $9 billion now underway. Cheniere's got a roughly $18 billion LNG export facility that I think is roughly halfway done. You've got Simple LNG and the British Gas / Energy Transfer, both doing $9 billion plus LNG export projects, and a bunch of other small projects. So the Lake Charles area, including Cameron Parish, is easily, I think, the biggest location of concentrated manufacturing investment in America, I mean, without question. Then you look at Home Thibodeau, which has been going strong with the deepwater in the Gulf. Companies like Schwest and Danos and others are really racing to keep up with demand. It's under a bit more pressure recently, obviously, because of the oil prices. Fortunately, most of the deepwater activity in the Gulf is not quite as sensitive to short-term changes in oil prices, but it has slowed down a little bit. But overall, I still think a very good long-term outlook for that region. So that's every region. We covered 8 regions in Louisiana. All of them have had some significant wins. All of them have their own unique opportunities for growth in the future.
It really is has been special to watch. Now, I mentioned this in the show open, but you and a team of very competent people at LED, I know you hate to lose. We've talked during the break about how much you hate to leave that team, but look forward to your next opportunity opportunity. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but you really have transformed economic development in our state. Our ethics laws are stronger, our business climate is better, our workforce development efforts are nationally recognized, globally recognized. We've got a record number of citizens who are employed in our state at this point. We've climbed in every major ranking that looks at economic development and those factors, and we see these major announcements on a weekly basis. How do we keep this momentum going?
It's funny you say you asked that question too. I've been thinking about that a lot lately myself. You know, I've essentially put the last decade of my life focused on either just about Missouri or most of it really the state as a whole. It's not just been my work, it's my passion, it's been my hobby. It's basically, next to my family, it's been the great focus of my life. And it's hard to transition from that. Probably my biggest concern is not losing momentum. You know, we still have we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. You know, as I think about the work we've done in economic development, I think more than anything, what we've been able to show in the last 7 years is that so much more is possible. But I would say, as proud as I am of all these things we've talked about, this is just a glimpse of what's possible. It's kind of like the appetizer to the meal, or the preface to the full book, or maybe just one chapter of the book. Everything we've done, we could do so much more. We could secure more growth. We can become even more diversified. We can continue to improve in our national rankings and so forth. So my great interest in this governor's race and in the future of leadership under the next administration is I hope that whoever's elected will embrace healthy, sustained economic growth as one of their top goals, ideally their top goal. Because if you can achieve that on a regular basis, everything else you want to achieve is going to become easier, and if you can't achieve it, you will fail ultimately in most of the big things that matter to people in the future of Louisiana.
Well, if you think about the real priorities of state government, obviously education has to be there, infrastructure development, but those things that lead to economic development and job creation really have to be the focus. Now, what should the next, you mentioned it, this momentum going, right? We've got these infrastructure issues in our state. We've got this a little bit more complicated than it should be tax structure in our state. So I know you'll be looking at those things. The legislative session is underway. A lot of things going on there. We're going to talk about this budget deficit and its impact on higher education, but specifically in this session, what are some of the things that LED is looking for and working on?
Well, I think I would say just about the future at a high level. You know, there's, first of all, growth is, I think, the most important thing we have to embrace as a state. It'll help us achieve everything else we want to achieve. There's 4 big categories of things that we need to work on. Those are talent development, regional development, industry development, and policy development. I'll just kind of mention briefly. Under talent development, we have to be able to provide the pipeline of talent that business needs to grow. You know, at the 4-year level, for example, we need a lot more engineers, computer science grads, accounting grads, finance grads, and so forth. At the community and technical college level, we need just massive amounts of folks in skilled trades and manufacturing operations. We need to continue our investment in customized training like Fast Start, really critical. Second key focus area is regional development. We've got to do more to create more livable, attractive communities. That's largely a local initiative. We need to cultivate more development-ready sites. That's one of the most common reasons we lose a project today. Third key area is industry development. We have to continue to make business retention one of our top priorities. We have to continue to work to cultivate new growth industries in Louisiana to diversify our economy. We need to implement our master plan for international commerce, which by itself could produce 10 to 15,000 more jobs. And then finally, policy development. We need to reform our tax structure. We could have a system with the same low tax burden that we have now, but with vastly fewer tax exemptions and lower, flatter rates, which would give us a much more attractive, easier to understand, simpler to administer and to use system than we have today, and improve our business climate rankings in the process. We need a transportation infrastructure financing solution. There's a number of options for that, and we need to continue to work on our legal and regulatory environment. I realize it's a bunch of different things, but all of them matter, and those are the kinds of things that we need to really focus on to secure sustained growth in the future.
Well, and I know that those are things that you'll be talking to your successor about, you'll be talking to the next governor about, that those are the things that we have to keep in the forefront, and we'll work to do that. We're going to take a break. We come back, I want to talk about LSU, I want to talk about the LSU Foundation, I want to talk about higher education funding. We're visiting with Secretary Stephen Moret of Louisiana Economic Development, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.
Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College. Do you want a better life?
Get your associate's degree in occupational studies in information technology from ITI. In 2 years, you'll be on your way to a better life. You will get hands-on specialized training in computers, hardware and software, networking, and more. ITI offers flexible class schedules, and financial aid is available to those who qualify.
So don't wait. Call ITI now or go online. It's that simple.
ITI, for a better life.
The funny thing about Louisiana is that people don't often ask you why you moved home. They just accept it as the most natural thing in the world. Because of course I would want to move back home and be near my tribe, be in this beautiful landscape. It just inspires me. Whether it's a golden marshland, an expanse of sugarcane fields, a sunset through a cypress swamp, the outdoors here really are like nowhere else. You can start your day off paddling at Lake Martin, finish it off with music at the Blue Moon. I came home for my dream job, but also because I believe in Louisiana and where it's going. We're building a world-class Central Park in Louisiana, planned by the members of this community. And I just bought my dream home, a sustainable house designed and built by the architecture students here at the university. My electricity bill was $30 last month. The life I thought I would have in Austin is actually happening right here in Louisiana. I'm E.B. Brooks. I have the job I want in the place I love.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show, visiting with Secretary Stephen Moret of Louisiana Economic Development and soon to be President and CEO of the LSU Foundation. Higher education funding, session going on as we mentioned. Talk that higher education could see cuts of over $600 million, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, maybe $150 million. I know that it is critically important, not just from the four-year institutions, but from our community and technical college system as well, that we maintain adequate funding and demand excellence from our higher education institutions. What are you hearing? And then I want to talk a little bit about what your ideas are in terms of short-term fixes and maybe long-term fixes as well.
Well, I think the thing that's most important is our higher education institutions need to get some stability. It's very difficult for them to manage, year to year, and particularly for longer-term planning to serve their students, serve the state, without the kind of stability they need in their funding base. My sense is that everyone downtown is interested in trying to get to the best possible outcome. There's obviously a bunch of different ways to get there, but there's kind of weighing these different options. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a standstill budget for higher education. There's obviously many potential scenarios, but it's important that they get it right. I think also we've got to find, I personally believe we need a new compact, a new funding compact between the state and higher education for the future. The reality, Tim, is that President Alexander's talked about this, I think on your very show, how nationally higher education funding is really under a lot of pressure. You've got, more acute here certainly, but the same kinds of trends where states are struggling with growing pension obligations, growing Medicaid costs. At the same time, their revenue is under pressure because of a shift in the economy from largely taxed goods to largely untaxed services and more internet purchases where those taxes typically aren't collected. That's creating a real squeeze on state government funding. And in most states, higher education tends to be one of the most vulnerable parts of those state budgets. So as you look to the future, that really suggests a couple of big things. One is working to get a more stable funding base from the state. But then secondly, and this is where I think my new job is going to come in a little bit, trying to build a much more robust philanthropic support base. There was a time nationally when you thought about philanthropy in higher education, that meant automatically you were talking about private institutions and private higher education. That is no longer the case today. The great public universities in America increasingly are funded by a mix of sources where philanthropic support is becoming a bigger part of what they do. LSU got into that game a lot later than other places. There's been a lot of progress made in the last couple of decades, but there are other places that started 2 or 3 or 4 decades earlier.
University of Texas, University of North Carolina.
We've got some catching up to do. And it's going to be a big challenge, but it's one that I'm very excited to take on.
Well, let's jump into the new role. As you leave, you got about a month left, and you'll transition from Secretary of LED to President and CEO of the LSU Foundation. Give our viewers an overview of the foundation just briefly, and tell us what you're going to be focused on there.
Well, I think the most important thing is that the LSU Foundation is focused on building greater levels of philanthropic support for LSU. You think about the experience that you had at LSU, the experience I had at LSU. If you go out to that campus today, it is obviously centrally a land-grant public research university. But if you look around and you walk around, everywhere you go, there is a program, a building, a professor, a scholarship that would not be there but for the generous support of LSU alumni and friends of LSU. And right now on the campus, the new engineering building underway, 50% funded with non-state dollars. The building, the business complex, huge amount of private sector support for that as well. Many scholarships and professorships and department chairs and research initiatives funded by alumni, foundations, corporate support as well. So as we think about what it means to create a great public research university, one of the key pieces is a strong philanthropic support base. And like I said, LSU's had some very generous donors, but compared to most of our peers in the SEC and candidly most public research universities around the country, we really have a less developed philanthropic support base than those other institutions have. And you and I both know how passionate LSU alumni are about this school. I mean, we feel like, and we are, part of a special institution, part of a special tribe. And I think one of the great opportunities and challenges that we have at LSU is to create a stronger culture of giving. My great hope, obviously we want to raise a lot of money over time, and we'll have at some point a big capital campaign, and that's going to be great. But we also need to create a stronger tradition of giving. That my great hope is that 5-10 years from now, when a person who thinks of themselves as a strong, passionate LSU Tiger, as part of the LSU family, that giving to LSU on a regular basis at some level is an important part of what membership in that special fraternity means.
Well, as someone who is very passionate about LSU, I think about the work that you've done at LED in transforming our state and making us proud and feel better about good things coming in the future and the things that have already come. And certainly your new job and your new role will be just as critically important to help build our great university and keep us proud. Listen, buddy, thank you for the work that you've done at LED, and I look forward to seeing the work you'll do at LSU. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.